Chapter 1. How to make ramen broth. Preparing ramen broth is perhaps the most complicated part in making Japanese ramen. Some broths can be time-consuming and will take you hours or even days to prepare. However, it is the broth that gives character to your ramen. It is considered to be the secret of a good ramen. How to make fish broth. The fish broth has a moderately salty taste. Despite its clear appearance, it should be full and savory from the kombu with a smoky aroma. The fishy taste should be strong but not displeasing or overpowering. This broth is typically used for shio and vegetable ramen. I think this broth is also the perfect choice for those who are health conscious because you don't have to add high-sodium condiments such as soy sauce. Making fish broth is quick and easy because you don't have to spend the whole day cooking this broth. You can even prepare a simple fish broth in just a couple of minutes. What you'll need: 2½ cups water, 2 kombu, niboshi, dried anchovy, katsuboshi, salt, pepper. Kombu, niboshi, and katsuboshi are available from Asian grocery stores. Step-by-step instructions. 1. Pour 2½ cup of water to a saucepan. Put it on low heat. 2. Add kombu, dried kelp. 3. Add 2 to 4 pieces of kombu. 4. Remove kombu just before the water boils. 5. The broth should be pale and yellowish in color. 6. Then add niboshi, dried sardines, and simmer it for 15 minutes. 7. Remove niboshi from the water. 8. Separate niboshi from the broth. 9. Then add a handful of katsuboshi in the saucepan. 10. Add some salt and pepper and mix well. Quick tips. How to wipe kombu. Before you put the kombu or dried kelp in the water, lightly wipe off its surface with a damp cloth. The white powder on the surface of the kombu gives the broth its strong, savory flavor. Use a deep saucepan so that the water does not evaporate rapidly. If you don't have one, use 3 to 4 cups of water or put a cover on the saucepan while simmering. You may have to experiment with how much niboshi or katsuboshi you will use. Adjust the ratio of ingredients according to your taste. You can freeze this stock for future use, but since it is an easy stock to make, it might be better to make a fresh batch whenever you need it. How to make chicken broth. This broth has a mellow and comforting taste. The chicken flavor isn't too heavy and is made fragrant by the ginger and spring onion. Chicken broth should be clear to yellowish in color and not too cloudy in appearance. It has a gelatinous consistency when cold, but should not have a lot of solidified fat or grease. This kind of broth is typically used for shoyu and miso ramen, but you can also use it for shio ramen, or any ramen that requires a broth that won't overpower other soup bases. What you need: 1 kilogram chicken bones, leeks, ginger, 1.5 liters of water. Step by step. 1. Clean the chicken bones and wash them well. 2. Put the chicken bones in the pot and then fill with just enough water to cover the chicken bones. Bring to a boil until the bone changes color. Skim any scum that forms on the surface during the boiling process. 3. Take the bones out of the pot and drain. 4. Fill your pot with 1.5 liters of fresh water. Add leeks, ginger, and bones. Boil on high heat and skim any scum that forms on the surface. 5. Add the green parts of leeks and peeled ginger. 6. Then continue heating it for 1 hour in mid to low heat. 7. Filter it on a deep container or bowl using a strainer with a kitchen towel on it. Quick tips. It is important to regularly skim the scum off the broth to achieve a clean tasting broth. Use lots of bones, as many as possible. Use bones from 2 whole chickens if you want a stronger taste. If you want a richer broth, use lots of cleaned chicken feet along with the bones. Ginger takes away any unpleasant taste and aroma from the chicken. Use more ginger if necessary. Chicken stock isn't as fatty as pork stock, but you can cool it down and skim the fat off the surface if you wish to cut down on cholesterol. You can store the stock in your freezer for future use. It will keep for around 2 to 3 weeks. How to make pork broth. Pork broth has a rich, meaty taste. It can also be quite fatty or oily, depending on the parts used for the broth. Tonkotsu broth is white and creamy. We will use the pork bone broth for tonkotsu ramen. You can also use this broth for miso ramen to give it a meaty flavor. What you need: 4.6 kilos pig's feet, 1 small piece ginger, 5 garlic cloves. Step-by-step instructions. 1. Put the pig parts in a deep pot and let it soak for around 2 hours to get rid of the blood. 2. After soaking, change the water and bring to boil. Boil for 30 minutes. 3. Remove any foam or scum that forms on the surface. 4. Remove the water, then wash the pot and the bones. 5. Put the bones back to the pot. Fill the pot with water again, enough to cover all the meat and bones. 6. Add the peeled ginger and garlic cloves. 7. Slow cook for 15 to 20 minutes, or until you achieve a creamy white broth. 8. Skim off the scum whenever it forms on the surface. 9. After cooking it for 15 to 20 hours, transfer and filter the stock through a strainer or cheesecloth into another deep pot. 10. Cool the stock over ice water or cold water. You can now store it in the freezer and take it out whenever you need to use it. 11. Before you heat or use the broth, make sure to remove the lard on the surface. 12. Heat the soup before serving. Quick tips. Try to experiment with the taste and consistency of your broth by using different pork parts. However, using big bones, knuckles, and ribs seems to give the most flavor. After boiling most of the meat off the bones, break the bones with a heavy cleaver. The marrow inside the bones will give your broth a rich flavor. Using more pork and bones will give you a tastier and creamier broth. Boiling for longer hours on low heat will give you a more complex flavor. Pork is a very fatty meat, and you will get a considerable amount of lard once you cool the broth down after boiling. Make sure to get rid of this fat before using the broth, or you will be ingesting huge amounts of cholesterol. Skim off the scum as soon as it forms on the surface. Otherwise, it will boil into your broth and give it an unpleasant taste.